Hey, you're here for Violin with Catherine. I'm Catherine, and today we're going to learn how to tune our violins. So go ahead and grab your violin and let's get started. There are two ways that we can tune the violin. We can tune them with the pegs up here, and we can tune them with the fine tuners down here. If your violin doesn't have 4 fine tuners, it may have none or just one for the E string, then I highly recommend you take your violin to a luthier or a violin shop and get them to change the tailpiece here to one that has in shop and get them to change the tailpiece here to one that has the 4 fine tuners, as you will find it much easier to tune your violin accurately if you have all 4 fine tuners there. When tuning our instrument, we will be either making our string higher in pitch or lower in pitch. When you're first starting out, it can be hard to know which way you need to go. So later in the video, I will direct you to some violin tuning apps to help out with this. To tune with the fine tuners, it is simply just a small screw which we either loosen by turning to the left or we tighten by turning to the right. Our strings from the left over to the right are G, D, A and E, with G being the lowest string. So I also tell my students, if you want to make the pitch go higher, you turn it towards the higher strings. If you want it to go lower, you turn it towards the lower strings this way. Now I'll tune each of my 4 strings with the fine tuners, and for the moment we'll do this just with plucking the strings rather than with the bow. When we tune the violin, we always begin with the A string, then we go down to the D, down to the G, and we finish up with the top E. So starting with my A string, I'm going to play the A on the piano so that I have the accurate pitch to match my violin to. And I can hear that my A string A isn't perfectly matched, so I need to adjust it. And I can tell that that's a little bit flat, so I'm going to turn this to the right, my A string. Make sure you follow the string down to get the correct fine tuner, and we turn it to the right to make it sharper. And a little bit more. Then we go down to our D string. So again, follow your D down, make sure you get the correct fine tuner. I can hear that my D is a little bit sharp, so I'm going to turn it to the left to loosen it a little bit. And then G. So that's quite flat. So I'm going to sharpen it by turning it to the right. And then finally our E string up the top. And I'm loosening that because it's a little bit sharp. And that's how we tune our fine tuners. Towards the end of the video, I'll show you how you can do this with your bow. Now for tuning with the pegs. So if you have the 4 fine tuners, the pegs will be used primarily when a new string is put onto the violin. However, sometimes the violin could get bumped, or due to changing weather conditions, they may loosen. And also sometimes this happens particularly to student violins, not so much my own, but if the fine tuners get tightened all the way and you can't tighten it any further, you need to loosen them. I usually bring it back to a bit more than halfway, almost all the way out, and then I retune with the pegs. When tuning with the pegs, we turn the peg away from us if we want to make it sharper or higher, and we turn the peg towards us if we want to make the string lower or flatter. However, we also at the same time need to push the peg inwards in towards the peg box in order to wedge it in nicely, otherwise they will just slip back out of place. So when I'm tuning with the pegs, I want to make sure the violin is nice and steady on my body or my lap. And if I'm tuning the right hand side pegs, I will hold the upper body and around the neck to keep the violin nice and steady with my left hand. And when I'm doing the left hand side, I'll swap those hands around. So my right hand is holding up here and my left hand can hold on to the pegs. Again, follow the string up, this time into the peg box, to be sure you get the right peg, starting with the A string My A string is very flat, so I'm going to turn the peg away from me to make it sharper. I can put my thumb and my first finger on the flat surfaces of the peg. Then the D, that's also flat. I've swapped my hands over, so my right hand is holding the violin and I'm turning the D string peg with my left hand. G, that's actually pretty in tune. E string is very flat, so I'm going to hold on to the peg and turn it away from me. Remember, pushing it inwards at the same time. As I promised earlier in the video, I will show you now how we will actually do this tuning with the bow. I'm going to use my fine tuners. I just left them not 100% in tune when I did the last tuning. So we're going to pop the bow on the string, and we're going to get the left hand and we're going to bring it under the hand, under the right hand, and come up and pick your nose. Just kidding. All right, so playing our A string A. So just the same process, we're going to use our left hand now to tune up. So that means we can keep bowing while we're moving it. Okay, so I've just gone up and down so you could hear the pitch wavering up and down a little bit as I was moving it. Now when you get more advanced, all you really need is the A string A. And once you've got that and you've got your A string in tune, what we actually learn to do as violinists is to tune each string in relation to the previous string. So I'm going to do that right now. We're going to go down to our A string, down from our A string, we'll play our D string, and we'll do the A and the D together. So then I'm hearing that relationship between those two strings, and my ears are trained to hear that perfect, actually the interval of a fifth, which we'll talk about in another session. But now I can tune my D string in relation to my A. Now that my D string's in tune, I'm going to check it with my G and tune my G in relation to my D. And finally, I'm going to tune my E string in relation to my A. So this is a lot more advanced, doing it with your bow like this and actually hearing those individual pitches. But for beginners, definitely plucking is the easiest way, and using an app will be the best way to get your violin accurately in tune, so you can practice at home and get ready for your online lesson if you're having online lessons, so you don't have a teacher there to get your violin nicely in tune for you. So these are just a couple of apps that I have found which I think are particularly nice for beginners, just due to their simplicity. We'll start first looking at Simply Tuner. So you can see it's marked each of the pegs to match the strings. So we're just going to tap on the A there to listen to the A, and then we'll tune up to that A. I'll tap that again so you can hear that play. So it did say my A was slightly low, and then you can see that blue line just matches in to the center of the green larger section there. So we'll just tap on the D now. It says very high for my D, which is correct. So I'm going to lower my D by turning it to the left. To the G, so it's very low, so I'm sharpening it by turning my fine tuner to the right. And then the E, so very high it says, which is correct, so I'm going to lower my E string by turning it to the left. And And so that's how that one works. The second one I want to show you today is violin tuner here. So this one actually has the hertz. So typically A is set to 440 hertz. Occasionally it'll be a little bit different, but that's the standard. So we're going to start with our A as always. I'm just going to untune my fine tuners a little bit just so we can try it out, make sure it's working nicely. Starting with our A again. So you can see that's a little bit flat, so we're going to sharpen our A. As you can see, we want to get that centered in the middle there. Then we'll try our D. So that's flat, which is what it shows me. So I'm going to go higher. Turning my fine tuner clockwise as always, playing the G. So my G is a little bit sharp, just as it shows us. So I turned my fine tuner slightly to the left, and finally the E. Very flat, as it shows us clearly there. Thanks for watching this video. If you got value out of this, please give it a like down below and pass it on to anybody else who you think will find it helpful.